wasn't there?
Okay.
No.
Ready to go.
No, this is all the good meetings.
That's look. He's the president. We're not going to say anything about him now, Michael. Especially because we're on Facebook Live and he can actually hear us afterwards. Okay. Hi, Chava. Right. Okay. Okay. I want to start with the Parasha tonight and then move on from the Parasha to discussing some other things. Okay. Just turn off the phone to make sure that that doesn't disturb us. We'll move on to the Megillah. The Parasha this week is a bit complicated, and it's hard sometimes to get the right sort of ideas from this Parasha. However, I'd like to nevertheless try to point out a few things. I found some very, very beautiful ideas here, and maybe to share them with you so that we can learn something together. So, let's start with the following. This is an idea that the Kli Yakar puts forward, and the Kli Yakar says the following idea. In our Parasha, we have different kalim. We have different vessels that are being described, and they're being described exactly how you build them. So, if you're looking at chapter 25, verse 10, we are discussing the Aron. Have a look at verse 10. Ve'asu Aron atzei shitim. They should make an Aron. They made a box for the tablets that we made that box. And how big is it? Amasayim v'chetzi arka, 2.5 long, 2.5 cubits long. Ve'ama v'chetzi rachba, 1.5 wide. Ve'ama v'chetzi kamasa, and 1.5 high. So it's 2.5 by 1.5 by 1.5 cubits. A cubit is either 48 centimeters or 60 centimeters. There's a discussion amongst today's Rabbonim exactly how big it is. But give it between 50 and 60 centimeters. Not massive, but at least with every single one of them, you'll have halves, etc., etc. That is the Aron. Then after the Aron, we have another thing that you make. We made a Shulchan. The Shulchan was the table, and on that table, we had the showbread, the lechem aponim, and we are at chapter 25, verse 23. Ve'asisa shulchan atzei shitim. You should make a shulchan of cedar wood, and that's amma arka, 1 amma long. I'm sorry, amasayim arka, 2 ammas long. Ve'amma rachman, and amma wide. Ve'amma v'chetzi kamasa. So that's 2 by 1 by 1.5. That's the second one. The third one is what is the Mizbeach Hazav. I'm using these 3 specifically, and we'll see soon. Later on, this is not in this week's Pasha, next week's Pasha, in Pasha's Tetzaveh, there were 2 altars. There was an altar that was inside the Beis HaMikdash, inside, and there was an altar that was outside in the vestibule, in the hall. And that altar that was inside was used to bring Ketores on it. You brought the incense on it, and if you look at verse 2 in chapter 30, so you're well ahead, chapter 30, verse 2, we describe the dimensions of this altar, and he says, Amma arka, it was an amma long, the amma rachba, and an amma wide, ravua, so it was square, the amma saim kamasa, and 2 ammas in height. Okay? So we have over here 3 different vessels where you have 3 different measurements. You have the vessel known as the Aron, which has 2.5 by 1.5 by 1.5. Yes? A cubit is either 48 or 60 centimeters. So again, so you have 2.5 by 1.5 by 1.5. Then you have the shulchan, which is 2 by 1 by 1.5. And you have the special mizbeach, the inside mizbeach, which was 1 by 1 by 2. Right? That is the 3 different things. Now, what these 3 different things have in common is they all had something known as a zer. A zer was a crown. If you have a look in your art scroll, so if you're on your page, whatever page you were on, if you're on page 482, For example, if you were looking, or you're on another page, I would have it also. But if you're on 482, which was what we were looking before, you're on 482. Yeah. Look at the picture over there. What do you see between the two corners? Yeah. Can you see what we have? Yep. Oops. I'm sorry. You see that little zigzag?
Yeah.
That was known as the crown. You can see that as well. If you go back to the Aron, you want to look at the ark that was created. You'll find it there as well in Parasha's Terumah. Here, page 447. If you look at the bottom of page 447, at that diagram, you'll find that you have a little crown on that page. Yeah, can you see it? Mm-hmm. Lastly, you turn the page to page 449. Thank you. So just the next page. And there you'll see it again. Yeah. We had only 3 different things had crowns in the Mishkan, 3 different vessels had crowns in the Mishkan. So what do we make of all of this? So the Kli Yakar says there are lots of things to be made of almost anything within the Mishkan. We can try to understand and we can try to see what it's all about, and we can try to learn some lessons from it. So he wants to say the following. Let me see if I can find the right page. Okay. And that's the following. Says, let's just find where it was. That's very good. We got it here. Right. So, the explanation that he gives is the following. He says, if you think of the Aron, what does the Aron symbolize? What does the Aron symbolize? What lay inside the Aron? The 2 tablets, right? Therefore, if the 2 tablets lie inside the Aron, what are we symbolizing with this Aron? Or what could you symbolically take it to mean? Something spiritual, the Torah, so to speak, right? That was the Aron. The Aron very, very special because it held the 2 luchas, it held the 2 special tablets that were handed down to Moshe Rabbeinu. The Shulchan had bread on it. When we speak about bread, what do we really think of? Bread is a livelihood. Yeah? People make a livelihood. What they, the minimum people want to have is at least bread. If you don't have bread, you don't have anything. Yeah? That's the minimum. You want bread and water. Somebody said to me recently, they made a shalachmonis. All these shalachmonis, and they come up with all these interesting themes and everything. So somebody made this shalachmonis made up of bread and water. They all dressed up as jailbirds, and they just gave out bread and water. And they said, this is what we get. Now, I think if I've never been to jail, actually, not even to visit people. I know my father has been many times to visit people, but I've never been to visit anyone. But I understand that in jail nowadays, you get a little bit more than just bread and water. But it used to be, you get cable television even. Yeah? You get to watch the Hotspurs losing. But that's a different discussion. Now, they were losing on the way here, at least. I don't know where they're up to now. But you have the bread. Oh, thank you so much. That's really nice of you. Oh, so, thank you, Ivor. So you have the Aron representing spirituality, and the Shulchan representing Parnasa and sort of physicality. Says the Kli Yakar a very important thing. He says, we have an interesting way, an interesting barometer at looking at other people. So, for example, there are different people that will look different ways. Let's say you had a good friend in school, and you both finished high school, and let's say, Alan, you both became chemists, right? Now, Alan bought a chemist on King's Road, and it was going okay, Baruch Hashem. And this fellow bought 1 chemist, and then a 2nd chemist, and a 3rd chemist, and now he's got a chain of 20 or 30 chemists. And Alan looks at him and he says, we both went to the same high school. We both went to the same university. We both graduated with the same degree and with the same grades. Why does he have 30 chemist shops and I only have one? That's true. Parasha. Yeah. Really? Lloyd's is a big chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it. That mentality. But there are a lot of people that'll be extremely jealous. Why does he deserve it? Why don't I deserve it? And now, you might not want that. That's fine. If your mentality was, I had one shop, I was happy with my shop, I don't need more than that, fine. Right? But there are plenty of people that will look at, I'm sure, the same with in the optics or anything else. You know, some people look at you and they'll say, oh, it's a big practice. Big practice. You got 3 people there. Some people say, that's a big practice. I got 5 or 10 opticians. One optician, I don't care how many patients he has, that doesn't bring in enough money. And some people are very, very jealous of other people. They say, how come he's making so much money and I'm not making anywhere near what he's making? We're always looking up to other people. Their houses, their cars, what they have, etc., etc. Jealousy is something that really eats away at people. Now, let me change the topic a little bit. Let us look at spirituality. You ever meet somebody that says to someone else, I daven and I can make it to minyan once a day. He's got a job where I can make a minyan 3 times a day. I'm so jealous he can get to minyan 3 times a day. You ever heard anybody say that? Or, seldom. That's very seldom. Or hearing somebody else say, I've learned and I finished 1 tractate of Gemara, but he's finished 6 tractates of Gemara. He's finished the entire Babylonian Talmud. He's finished the entire Chumash. Wow. Look at him. I'm so jealous. I wish I had that. When it comes to Ruchnius, when it comes to matters of the soul, somehow we don't have that same feeling of inadequacy that we get when we speak to people about the physical matters. Most people. There are some. I'm not making it up, but we're generalizing at the moment. Most people, when they see somebody else being successful, they wish they were successful also. If they're really jealous, they wish he wasn't successful. But some people, look, I forgive him everything, but why can't I be successful also? Yeah, that's the nice people. The not nice people will say, I don't even forgive him to make money. Him? Such a low life. He's such a loser. How's he making money? Yeah. But, the nice people, they say, look, whatever. He's making money. God, there's enough money out there for him to make money, for me to make money also. Right? There's enough properties out there. I was discussing property about investments, etc. And he says, I don't drive myself crazy. I said, why not? He said, look. He showed me Zoopla, for example. There's hundreds of thousands of properties out there on sale. If one deal goes past and I don't get it, guess what? There's enough things out there for everybody to make parnasa. Some markets are a lot tighter, so it's a little bit harder to say that. In certain instances, I can't have as much money as he wants to. Let me just have just as much. But most people are jealous of people's physical assets, and they're not so jealous of people's spiritual assets. And here comes the Torah, and he speaks about these crowns. He speaks about Kesef Torah, Kesef Kehuna, Kesef Malchus. Kesef Torah, the crown of Torah. The crown of Torah symbolized over here by your Aron. He says, when it comes to the Aron, look at the measurements in the Aron. What are the measurements in the Aron? Every single one of them was a half measurement. Why is every single measurement in the Aron a half measurement? He says, you know why the measurement in the Aron, every single measurement is a half measurement? Because when it comes to spirituality, a person should see he's only half full. There's always more to accomplish. There's always more that I can do. And therefore, as there's always more to accomplish and there's always more that I can do, I'm always looking at the cup half full. Right? Some people look at the cup and they say, it's full. Look, I come to shul once a week. I'm very happy with myself. Yeah? Maybe. But we shouldn't be looking at it like that. We should be looking at the cup half empty and saying, once a week's not bad. Twice will be better. Twice a week's not bad. 4 times will be better. You could always try to up yourself. Up your game. So when it comes to Torah, you should always be looking up at somebody else. When it comes to the physical, he says, there where is money, which represents the money. On the one hand, you have 2 amas by 1 amma by 1.5 amas, right? 2 cubits by 1 cubit by 1.5 cubits. So you have half and half. Half of them are whole numbers and half of them are partial numbers. Why do we have half numbers and whole numbers? So he says, a person should know, when you look at yourself, you should be happy. One second. You should look at yourself and be happy. I have what I need. God gave me what I need. Right? That's number one. That's the whole things. When people look, many people are always looking at what they're missing. Yeah? You speak to someone, how you doing? Not bad. If I had X, I'd be doing better. You speak to other people, how you doing? Brilliant. I did a deal today. He says, yeah, but you could have done 10 deals today also. If, like Alan said, if you had that sort of attitude, you could push yourself further. You could do even more than that. Right? True. I might be able to do more deals. I might be able to make more business. But I'd be happy. Be happy with what I have. How great is it to be happy with what you have? Have you ever met somebody who's truly happy with what they have? I've had this. I can't say that I'm truly happy with everything I have. I don't want to, I don't want to say that. But my wife, halavai, I could be on that level, right? But my wife often says, I struggle to buy you something. I say, why? She says, because, you just seem to, you don't seem to really be walking around, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. So if I knew, some people go around and they always say, oh, I wish I had a knew this, I wish I had a knew that. Then your wife hears, she picks up on it and she thinks to herself, anniversary coming up, birthday coming up, I'll get him one, right? You can often hear what people don't have and you can try to fulfill that wish. It makes life easier when people tell you what they don't have. If people are in general happy with everything they have, it makes it very difficult for you to what? Absolutely. It is absolutely true. The wealthiest person is the person who is happy with their lot. Because the person who's got £1 million house but is unhappy because the guy next door has one that's worth $1.5 million is lacking. And the person that's living in a simple 2 up, 2 down but is happy with his house is much happier. Because he's not looking at his next door neighbor and saying to himself, I wish I had his house. I'm happy. I got my house. Baruch Hashem. I don't need anything else. Right? There are people that are always yearning for more. Says the Kliyaka, when it comes to the shulchan, when it comes to the table, there is something very important. You have to strike a balance. On the one hand, being happy with everything that you have. And that's the whole numbers. I'm whole. God gave me what I need. Right? That doesn't mean I can't go and buy myself something else. Right? I need a new suit. Oh, I'd like another suit. No, I'm happy with what I have. Now you go and buy yourself a new suit. Yeah? Nothing wrong with that. That's not what it means. But if you're actively unhappy because you're missing something that you cannot have, and you always say to yourself, if I only had X, I would be so much happier, then in truth, you don't understand happiness. You just don't get it. Because if you did, you'd know, wait, what do you mean? You can be very happy. Right? However, now comes the flip side of that. Let's say somebody's got plenty of money. And so with all that money, he could really buy himself whatever he wants to. This is where the last half number comes in over here. Says the Kiriyaka, yes, you might have the money to be able to buy it. But you need to get everything. You need to really own everything. Or can you be happy not having everything in life? I think we once had this discussion, and it's interesting because different people have different opinions on this. And I'm sure if I were to ask this question within shul, I would get 10 opinions from 10 different people. So I once went to Switzerland, and I was staying by my cousin, and he's into watches. Any of you guys ever look at these serious watch catalogs? Have you ever seen them? Special Bullion Movement and Patek Philippe's and Breguet and all these. Yeah. So do you know how much some of these watches cost? Well into the 6 figures. Well into the 6 figures. right? So you might think to yourself, "Oh, I have an expensive watch, it's £500." Somebody goes, £500 is nothing. My watch is £5,000. Somebody else can say, "That's nothing. My watch is £50,000." I remember I sat next to somebody in shul, and he used to show me his watch. I said, "That's a nice watch." Yeah, it was a solid gold Cartier watch. At the time when he bought it 30 years ago, it was, I can't remember what it was. He told me what it was in shillings at the time. Today, if you would buy that watch, it's probably £30,000 or something like that. Solid gold Cartier Tank Francais watch. Beautiful. Really, really nice. But then I walked up and down some of the streets. You go up the Bahnhofstrasse, for example, the main street in Zurich, the very fancy street that goes off the train station. It's called Bahnhofstrasse because Bahnhof is the train station. It goes off the train station. And they have all these fancy watch shops. And you go past one after the other. And you just see the numbers and you say to yourself, what can that watch do that my watch can't? Yeah? What does can a Seiko or a Casio watch tell the time any less than one of those? So you might say, well, no, they have special tourbillon movement. They have a special movement that's just exquisite and everything, etc., etc. True. My watch doesn't have that. Are you such a yakka? Like in a day, what's the difference going to be in a day's, a second? 2 seconds?
Wouldn't even be that. They'd be exactly the same.
They probably will be exactly the same. I think the digital watches are perfect.
Yeah.
There's very little that a digital watch can't do right.
And they have the radio now, don't they? So they're absolutely guaranteed. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And yet people are spending that kind of money. So we had the discussion, and let me ask you the question. If somebody's a millionaire. I knew somebody, I met somebody, I didn't realize this till well afterwards, but his nephew told me. I didn't realize how wealthy this guy was. I met this guy's daughter. I went out with his daughter, but then didn't work out. And afterwards, I spoke to this fellow's nephew. He said to me, "Do you know how rich my uncle is?" I said, "Well, he looked a well-to-do fellow." He said, "He's got a $5 million watch collection." I was like, "A $5 million watch collection?" Do you mean like this is just his hobby? Yeah, this is what he does for fun. He collects watches, so he's got a $5 million watch collection, right? Now, some people go, "Wow, this guy's really into watches." Some people say, "Do you know what? When there's people out there that have nothing to eat, is it maybe a bit perverse to be spending $5 million on different watches?" And some people will say, "What do you mean? He earned it. He deserves it. He wants to buy himself a £5 million watch. Go ahead. Yeah, he's got £100 million in the bank. He wants to spend that kind of money on a watch. Who are you to tell him not to spend that money?" She said, "Well, there are people that, but where'd you draw the line?" So by himself, fine. He won't spend £500,000 on his watch. He'll spend £5,000 on his watch. That's too much. He'll spend £500 on his watch. That's too much. There are people starving. You buy it for £5 also. Where are you going to draw the line? Yeah. So he's got all that money. Maybe he's allowed to. Let him buy the watch. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Just have interest. Who are things we won't call you out, but who are things that
You've summed up, haven't you?
Pardon?
You've summed it up. Where do you draw the line?
Where do you draw the line? So therefore some people say, well, since you cannot draw the line, then everybody should be able to make the decision on the line wherever they want to. There's nothing wrong with buying a watch for £500,000 if you have the money. Don't tell me where to draw the line. Now others will say, look, £500,000 on a watch is perverse. Yeah. Can you hear both sides of the argument? Yeah. What do you think, Roger? Well, you look like you're about to say something. That's the only reason I'm asking you.
I think that what that £5 million could do to save lives was contributed to research.
Right. Absolutely.
It could very well do that anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, because it'd still be £5 million less.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I mean, he might turn around and say this is a business. I know people that buy watches and trade watches. So he's bought the £5 million, but £5 million.
Well, there might be 5 million people out there that don't give a pound that should
Masha, like that.
So it's the same sort of money, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a big question. Yeah. Look, I can understand from both sides. I can see when people say, it's my money, I can do with whatever I like to, and I can see when people say there's a limit. You got to draw a limit somewhere. Right? It is very difficult. Because it's very difficult to put the line. Where am I going to put the line?
How many eyesights could that £5 million save in Africa?
Who knows?
How many people be saved from blindness by that £5 million.
Yeah, but would he be donating the £5 million to eyesight or to blind people in Africa? He might just put it in a property portfolio instead. If he bought a £5 million property as an investment, you might not have any issue with it.
I would still have an issue.
Yeah, but he said, but that's my portfolio. That's what I do. That I run this as a business. I get a rental income off my £5 million portfolio, and it's bringing in, I don't know, let's say 7, 8, 9% if it's good. At that point, if it's not so good, 5%, but even 5% on £5 million, you're looking at a fortune of money. And you can buy a watch. That's £250,000.
Well, that proves that we're living in an immoral society.
Yeah,
in which that is feasible.
It is
not be feasible.
Why not? Because Capitalism should allow you to do that.
So it's immoral. Every holiday that I take is depriving people of eyesight in Africa.
That could be. So therefore, you cannot take a holiday?
Yeah, why don't the government...
Do you not allow yourself a holiday, and every time you want to go on holiday, do you send money to Africa for research for eyes?
If it was my children's eyesight, I would not have the holiday.
But Roger,
that's true. That is true.
Why don't the governments in Africa look after their own people?
They don't really have... They don't have their what's going.
Separate matter.
It's a separate matter, but you can. But he's right. Roger's right. You could save hundreds of people's eyesight. There's lots of stuff. Even forget about eyesight. Running water. Before you even get to that, clean water. People don't have clean water. They die of, in our day and age where we waste water left, right, and center. There are people that have to walk 5 miles every day just to get clean water.
Society is grossly immoral.
In a way. Yeah, it's a long discussion. I don't really want to get into the discussion too much. But I'm mentioning this, right? But what I'm trying to say with this is, what the Kli Yakar is taking from this is that don't think that I can buy whatever I want to just because I have the money for whatever I want to. That's what he's saying, that you should leave a few things that you don't buy. Leave some things, leave over, says, you know what, I can afford this. At one point or another, I'm going to draw the line. And that's why I leave it at half. He says, the Shulchan, on the one hand, your attitude needs to be, I feel happy with what I have. I say, I'm happy with what I have. And number two, but look at yourself as a half and say, I don't need to fill everything. If I can afford to buy X, Y, and Z, I don't need to own it just because I can afford it. Right? Have that balance. That's what the Kli Yakar says. And then when it comes to the Mizbeach, he says a different thing, is because there it brings kapara, there it brings atonement. We want the atonement to be something that is all pervasive. We don't to be an atonement just in parts, and therefore we mention the atonement as a whole. But okay, that's a separate thing. But I found the Aron and the Shulchan very interesting, because there we're discussing specifically those points. Okay, so much for the Parasha. Now I want to move on to the Megillah. So if you have a look at the Megillah, you don't really need to really see the Megillah inside. I'm going to mention the following, and this is something that I saw, that if you think about it, let's go through the entire story of the Megillah and let's see at what point God did things for the Jewish people within the Megillah. So you have the story. You have Achashverosh, and Achashverosh is all excited because the Jewish people are not going to be redeemed anymore, and he makes this big party. And he invites all the people around of all the different countries, and then he invites for the last 7 days the people in Shushan. The people of Shushan come and they partake from the feast, and God is very, very upset with them. And at this feast, on the last day of the feast, you'd expect this is it, the shebang, right? The big feast. Achashverosh decides to call in his wife, undressed in front of everyone. The wife says no. They get into a fight. She gets killed. End of part one of the story. End of the first act. Second act of our Shakespearean play. He wakes up the next morning and says to himself, where is my wife? Vashti! There was a big oh moment over there. And the Medrash, he said he killed some of the people that advised him to have Vashti killed, because he was drunk. And if he had any seichel whatsoever, he wouldn't make this decision drunk. That's a stupid thing to do. Don't make that decision when you're drunk. Yeah, let me decide where to put my money and where to invest it. Let me just get drunk before I do that. No, you'd be throwing your money out the window, right? Why would you decide whether or not to kill your wife based on that? But he did. So he was very, very upset. He was very, very angry. And now he needs to find another wife. And he makes this weird pageant. almost. Instead of looking for blue blood, instead of looking for people of royalty, he says, I've had enough of royalty. I'm just going to get plain, simple people, plain, simple folk. So he decides to make this pageant, and at the pageant, there are people that show up, and slowly but surely, Esther's chosen. As crazy as it sounds, the one woman that didn't want to become the princess becomes the queen. And then you have this fellow Haman that gets up, and Haman says, we're going to kill all the Jews, and he plots together with Ahasuerus, and they make a plot, and then Mordechai sends the message to Esther, and Esther goes in to tell Ahasuerus, and they have the party together first night, and then Haman gets schlepped around through the whole city, and he gets garbage thrown at him, etc., and he ends up in Ahasuerus' palaces, and Ahasuerus then asks Esther what she wants, and Esther tells him what she wants, and Ahasuerus realizes that this guy is a perpetrator and a killer, and he has Haman killed. End of story. Yeah. Now, why did the Jewish people deserve to be wiped out? That's a question the Gemara asks. Why did the Jewish people deserve such a terrible fate? Because if God hadn't decided that to be their fate, then that wouldn't have happened, right? And yet, this is what happened. So the Gemara asked the question. The Gemara says a very interesting thing. The reason they deserve to get this terrible punishment is because they partook in the meal of Ahasuerus, which on a deeper level meant they celebrated their own downfall. Right? Because Ahasuerus, what's he celebrating? The fact that the Jewish people weren't redeemed.
Did they get the choice?
Pardon?
Did they get the choice?
They did get the choice, yeah. They did. They weren't forced to come. And it's interesting because one of the other Mepharshim says, if they had been forced to come, then God wouldn't have punished them. Because if they're forced to come, they're forced to come. You know, it's pikuach nefesh. It's something they have to give up their life for. But they weren't forced to come, and they came anyway. So they deserve that because they came. Now, how did they get saved? What happens in the end? How did they get saved? How did they get saved?
They refocus themselves.
Well, no, but who saved them? Because of Esther. How did Esther make her way into the palace? How did she get there? How did she get there? She was chosen. Why was she chosen? Why wasn't there another queen?
Not the way it's supposed to be.
No, but when was that? Where was the queen killed?
Years before.
Where? At the banquet.
Oh, right, it's different banquet.
Yeah, at the banquet. It says over here, there's a beautiful thought, an amazing thing, and to understand this, because the Gemara says that Kadosh Baruch Hu is makdim refuah l'makkah. He prepares the refuah, he prepares the healing before the actual plague comes. But it's amazing to realize this. So go back to it again. How were the Jewish people saved? Because they had a lady called Esther who was in the palace. How did Esther make it into the palace? Because there was a pageant. Why was there a pageant? Because the queen was killed. Where was the queen killed? At the banquet. What was the banquet there to do? And what was the consequence of the banquet? The banquet was there done by Ahasuerus to celebrate the downfall of the Jewish people. And at the banquet, we see that the Jewish people were destined to be killed. And at that banquet, what happens? God moves the chess pieces into place to ensure that what? That Esther could come and save the Jewish people. Right? That is an amazing thing to ponder. It's an amazing thing to see that not only did God save the Jewish people, because it's big enough that God saved the Jewish people, but he created the Savior. He created the actual way of them being saved when? When they were in the abyss, when they were busy sinning, when they did the one thing that made them deserve to be wiped out. At that banquet itself, that's where God put the chess pieces into place already to save the Jewish people. Do you see what I'm saying? That's an amazing thing. So when you celebrate Purim, it becomes a very different celebration. He says, yeah, eventually God saved the Jewish people. No. That's a wrong way of looking at it. Because if you say eventually God saved the Jewish people, what does that mean? That means originally they were supposed to die, and eventually God thought of a way of getting them all out of it. Yeah? Now what we're saying is not eventually God saved the Jewish people. whilst he was creating the problem, he was creating the solution at the same time as he was creating the problem. Yeah? It's like sometimes you take the, it's like a jigsaw or a crossword, right? How do you make a jigsaw puzzle? You make a picture and then smash it into bits. Yeah? You don't make the little bits one at a time. You start with a picture and then smash it into bits. How do you make a crossword puzzle? You make all the words, you put in all the words, and then you make all the clues, and then you make the letters disappear. But you can't make the clues and make the things go across and then say, let's see if this works. Good luck. Good luck creating a crossword puzzle that way. It's not going to work. What you need to do is first you need to fill in all the words and all the lines. Then you need to create all of the different clues. And then you can take away the letters for anybody who's not seen the crossword puzzle filled in to try to now come up with what you came up beforehand already. And that's what God does. When he creates the puzzle was made already, and then it came into bits, and we just need to put it back together again. It's not that at one point or another he goes, aha, I've added another factor in over here that might be able to get you out. No, he was always there. Even in the depths of the deepest sin, even as they were in the abyss, and even as they were doing the thing that was the most incorrect thing for them to do, whilst they were busy doing that, God was already putting the pieces in place to save them. That's amazing. That's something to keep in mind for Purim, that God saves us in midst of everything else, not at the end of everything else. At one point or another, he comes up a way to save us. Oh, I thought of a way out. No, it was always there. That's what we celebrate on Purim. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. Mr. Hashem, please, we will continue again next week. Thank you all of you for coming. Thank you for those who came live. Thank you for those who watched along. And no, Moshe, you're not getting the watch.